There's one non-negotiable for beating the Iowa Hawkeyes, and that's limiting Bennett Stirtz. Purdue could do it the first time, but it'll be much tougher on Saturday.
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network where it's your team every day. I am your host. I am Nick Arvin. I talk Boilermakers every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the only daily Purdue show out there. Also write about Purdue for Purdue 24/7. And we got a good episode headed your way today because we're talking everything Iowa and Purdue, that big-time matchup headed your way on Saturday. The only way that Purdue comes out of Iowa with a victory is limiting Bennett Stirtz, and that's what I want to get into today. Then we'll hit on my Purdue stock ups, stock downs for the month of February. Who's headed up, who's headed down as we get into the most important stretch of the season. And then we'll end off today's episode, of course, talking player matchups and end it out with my official game prediction. So make sure you stick around for that. But first of all, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Mazda. We put that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, well, that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there is more to you. And with that being said, it's Iowa, it's Purdue on Saturday, and this is a game that I truly do believe is the second toughest game left on Purdue's schedule. And maybe you could say Michigan State. Michigan State hasn't beaten Purdue at Mackey Arena since 2012. So this is going to be a game that is pivotal, number one, to getting Purdue that top 2 seed, which is ultimately where we want to be. Number 2, getting Purdue a double bye in March Madness. And then number 3, leaving the path open to still have a shot at winning the Big Ten championship. Now, definitely have to beat Michigan for that to happen. But with that being said, it's one step at a time. And that first step is going to be Saturday on the road against Iowa. And this is a tough Iowa team. The records may not show it. Purdue better on paper, and they're not ranked. But still, this is a really tough matchup. An Iowa team that has won 6 of their last 7. They had a 6-game winning streak going until earlier this week when they lost to Maryland. And honestly, I would have rather seen this Iowa team on the road coming off a 7-game winning streak than I would winning 6 out of 7, losing a game, and then being hungry to bounce back at their home arena, especially against a Purdue team that would be a huge resume builder for this Iowa team right now. So that's really what this matchup is going to be about, is Purdue trying to keep those hopes alive for that top 2 seed, a chance to win the Big Ten, and for Iowa, a chance to get their seeding up, get that marquee win that they have been searching for. And that's what people don't really talk about when they talk about Iowa. Now, Iowa, they do have some big wins. They've really stretched together a hot schedule as of late, but they still have yet to beat a ranked team this year. And that's the big knock on them. But still with that, I don't think it's a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. This is a team that almost beat Purdue. They were up at halftime, and Purdue does pull it out with a 7-point win. But the reason why they were able to do that, the reason why you win by 7 at Mackey Arena, is because you hold Bennett Stirtz under 20 points. And that's what Purdue is going to have to do in this game on the road to come out with the victory. It's a non-negotiable. You have to limit Bennett Stirtz. And I'm not saying stop Bennett Stirtz, because not many programs have been able to do that this year. But when you look at Iowa's losses, when you look at the ranked teams that have beat them, they all have one thing in common. They held Bennett Stirtz under 20 points. If you go back to Purdue, that game, January the 14th, they hold him to 19 points, 7 of 15 from field goal range. Illinois beat them the week before. They held him to just 12 points. Going back to Iowa State, which that was a game that Iowa was beat by 4 points against their rival. They hold Bennett Stirtz to 10 points. And then Michigan State, their other ranked loss, the Spartans hold them to 14 points. So you can see that is the common theme for beating this Hawkeyes team. That's the one thing that has held the Hawkeyes away from getting a marquee ranked win, is Bennett Stirtz not being able to crack 20. And when he does crack 20, you can start to see the flip in results, because in that 6-game winning streak, he goes for 27 against Indiana, 20 against Rutgers, 20 against USC, 32 against Oregon, 22 against Washington, and 36 points against Northwestern. Iowa doesn't have the depth to beat you anywhere else. It is the Bennett Stirtz show. That truly has been what this season has been for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Bringing him over for Drake. He is an amazing shot creator, can make the three ball, can get it inside. Really a 3-level scorer, in my opinion, and he's going to be the guy that generates offense for this team. Now, Tavion Banks is the other guard. I guess he's more of a wing, but he's the other guy, one other player who is in double digits for Iowa at right around 11 points a game. Still, with that being said, if you're able to let Tavion Banks run the offense, I'm comfortable with that. I'm happy with that if I'm Matt Painter and Tavion Banks is taking shots. What I don't want is for Bennett Stirtz to get hot in this game, for him to start generating shots, because if he's on, it's tough for me to say that Purdue is going to be able to keep up with that. And we saw great strides against Nebraska. There's no doubt in my mind, if Purdue comes out on the road the way that they did on Tuesday against Nebraska, this Iowa team is not going to be able to stop them. They don't have the defense. They don't have the depth. But from the inverse, if Bennett Stirtz comes out the way that he did against a team like Northwestern and scores 36 points, I don't know if Purdue is going to be able to stop that. So there's going to be a real chess match going on Saturday about who scores who, and can it be Purdue's depth? Because that's what Maryland was able to do. Maryland, the team that recently upset Iowa, ended that 6-game winning streak earlier in the week. The way that they were able to win was spreading out their scoring. They had 5 different guys that were in double figures. I feel like that is the key to beating Iowa. It's number one, limiting Bennett Stirtz. And that's first and foremost, no doubt about it. But number two, finding a balanced offense. And that's something I was really excited about against Nebraska, where I think Purdue had 4 different guys that were able to get into double figures. If they're able to do that once again against Iowa, I think that they come out with a victory, and a huge victory at that. The formula for me, truly, this is what I see happening. This is the best case scenario for Purdue on the road, is that if 4 guys, so call it Trey Kaufman-Renn, it gets into double figures. He has a 8+ rebound game. First of all, I don't think that Purdue gets beat if Trey Kaufman-Renn has a double-double, because he's going to be able to get so many more opportunities for this team. But back to my point, if Trey Kaufman-Renn can get into double figures, Braden Smith has a solid game, double figures, Fletcher Loyer shoots it efficiently, double figures, and then Oscar Cluff is able to have a good game as well. So say 4 of your starters get into double figures, and then CJ Cox is that guy on defense that's able to keep Bennett Stirtz under 20. That's the best case scenario for Purdue in this game. And I don't see Purdue getting beat if they're capable of doing that, because that has been the key to beating this Iowa team. Now, on the other hand, if for some reason Braden Smith has to play Superman or Fletcher Loyer has to make shots for the Purdue to stay in this game, I do think that we're capable of being beat on the road unless we're able to rebound the ball at a high level. This Iowa team isn't the best rebounding team in the nation. They don't have this huge front court like we've gone up against in the past. Now, that doesn't mean Purdue can underestimate this team, because we've also seen that at times, and then the Boilermakers just get out-rebounded by teams they have no business being out-rebounded by. But my point is, even if we struggle, much like in Nebraska, where you missed 33 or something three-pointers in that game, but if you're able to rebound the ball, that is a massive neutralizer. You get more opportunities, more volume. You have a better chance to win this game. I'm looking at Trey Kaufman-Renn in this one. I want to see another huge performance from him in this game against Iowa. I'm not saying he needs 19 rebounds, but if he can put up a double-double, I'll feel pretty confident about Purdue's chances. It's going to be a tough game, but Purdue found the formula against Nebraska. Hopefully they can apply that on Saturday against Iowa. In this next segment, we're going to talk about my stock up, stock downs for the month of February, who I think is trending up, who I think is trending down, and who is going to need to put up a huge performance on Saturday for Purdue to come out with the victory. That's coming up here next on Locked On Boilermakers. But first, hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed Sponsored Jobs is the move, because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your posts, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and locations. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want someone who could help. I'd want someone with real experience who can jump right in. And with Indeed, here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to that data that Indeed gives out worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for the events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care most about, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow get intense fast, speed skating races that are decided by inches, and hockey games that feel different right from the opening face-off. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better place to follow them than on FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. I want to get into my stock up and stock downs right now for the players on Purdue's roster, who is producing at a high level and who just isn't. But before we get to that, I do just want to tell you guys about a couple cool things. First of all, it's my first season here on the Locked On Podcast Network. First year starting up Locked On Boilermakers. I've had a great time, but I have this huge milestone of hitting 1,000 subscribers. So if you're new here, if you just haven't hit that subscribe button, it would mean a ton to me if you could do that. It is free and it helps us out a bunch. So thank you for that. And then the second thing that I want to tell you guys about is the Locked On Podcast Network and Locked On Boilermakers are bringing you guys the Everydayer Club. And what that is if you're an everydayer, first of all, you make this show go. Being here every single day means the world to me, means the world to us. And what you're going to get is Locked On Boilermakers content you already love, but ad-free. And not just that, you're also going to get access to the exclusive Everydayer Discord chat where you can talk to me, talk to all the Everydayers. You get Locked On Boilermakers, Locked On Big Ten, college basketball, really whatever you want, you got. So I'll leave that link down below for you guys. It's such a fun time in the Everydayer Club. Let's get into my stock up. Let's get into my stock downs, and we'll just go top to bottom in terms of, I guess we'll go stat leaders. So whoever's averaging the most in points per game, we'll start with, and then we'll move our way down a little bit to the end of Purdue's roster. And by no means does that mean that if they're averaging more points than someone else, that they're doing better or that I'm going to have them stocking up, because there's a lot more to just scoring, and different players have different roles, as you guys know. So we're going to start with Braden Smith, who at this point is now Purdue's leading scorer. He has been that for a little bit now, but 15.1 points per game, 8.8 assists. And Braden it's a weird one. It's a weird one to say stock up or stock down, because I truly don't feel like he's doing either. We know what Braden Smith is. When he's off of the court, Purdue is significantly worse. He makes Purdue, when you think about Boilermakers basketball, you think about Braden Smith. The only reason why I feel like you could say stocking down at all is just because the assist numbers haven't been there as of late like they were to start out the year. Now, to be fair, a lot of his teammates have been missing open shots. He had 10 assists against Nebraska, but against Oregon, 4, 6 against Maryland, 5 against IU. I'm not going to say that he's stocking down. I don't believe that's fair, just because he has such a big role, and you can see it. I mean, anybody could see it with the eye test out there. Braden Smith is huge for this team. So I'm not even going to say anything for him. I don't feel like that's fair to give out. Uh, he's just playing great basketball per usual. Fletcher Loyer is one I'm going to say stock up for him. And absolutely, he's had 3 games now where didn't shoot the ball the best against Nebraska, but still has 18 points in that game. I'm not going to complain about the way that he performed in that one. But from that stretch where he was shooting 29% from the start of December until January 27th, the start of February has been great for Fletch. 29 points against Maryland, 18 and 18 his past 2. I like what Fletcher Loyer has been doing lately. I think that if he can continue to make shots at an efficient level, we'll be in a good spot. And what he provides for this offense is so invaluable. You can't be at your best if you don't have Fletcher Loyer at your best. I think that he's really improved the last 3 games. I hope the rest of this month of February, he continues to be on it because we're going to need him against Iowa, against Michigan State. He's going to need to be huge. I think he's been pretty solid this month, so I'm going to say stock up for the month of February. Trey Kaufman-Renn is one where this one's a little bit interesting. In the month of February, he's had a 6-point game with 19 rebounds, 12 points and 8 rebounds against Oregon, and then 7 points and 10 rebounds against Maryland. I'm going to say that he's stocking down just a little bit. Now, I think that this is kind of indicative of the back end of January as well, where he was struggling. And I don't necessarily say it's fair to say after 19 rebounds. What I will tell you guys is that although I think he's kind of slowed down a little bit as the year has progressed, I think he's going to get back up there. I think we're about to see a valley, so to speak, for Trey Kaufman-Renn, where he starts up, goes down a little bit, and then comes back up. That's really what he's always been. I think that if he can continue to do that, continue to rebound the ball at a really high level, he'll stock back up and he'll be better for it. Purdue will be better for it because he is absolutely huge on the glass, so important to what this team wants to do. Oscar Cluff is one that I will say is stocking down and a little bit more so than Trey Kaufman-Renn. Now, once again, had a great game against Nebraska, 12 points, 14 rebounds. That's what we're going to need to see from him. But the past 3 games before that, 2-6 against IU, 6-3 against Maryland, 3-2 against Oregon. Those are not great splits and not what you want to see from him, especially not the way that he started out this season as efficient as he did. I want to see Oscar Cluff have more games like he did against Nebraska. And I don't necessarily need to see a huge volume from him as long as he's efficient. He takes what he can get and rebounds the ball, especially on the offensive glass. That is where Oscar Cluff is at his best. If he can continue to get better at that, which I don't even know if it's get better, but just find those mismatches on the offensive side. I think that he'll be really good and continue to be a big part of this team this year. So that's our 4 double figure guys. And then moving down to CJ, this is one where against Nebraska, I thought that he was great, although he only had 11, which 11 is actually the best he's had in 5 games. But all of those shots he made were in really important moments of the game. On defense, CJ has been great all season long, that amazing point of attack defender, and we're going to see him tested against Bennett Stirtz on Saturday. I do think that CJ has been stocking down a little bit just from an efficiency perspective, where what we've needed him to be is a low volume but high efficient shooter. On the defensive side, I can't say anything about him. He's been just fine. But on offense, he has struggled a little bit, where he's 4 of 13 against Nebraska, 1 of 4 against Oregon, 0 of 2 against Maryland, 6 of 11 against UCLA, which really wasn't a bad performance. But I just want to see him improve and fit into that role a little bit better. Still playing great basketball, so I take that with a grain of salt. I really hate saying that these guys are stocking down because they're really not. But it's not fair to say stock up as well, if you know what I'm saying. So I am going to say that for CJ as well. And that moves us on to our bench guys. And the leading scorer off the bench right now is Daniel Jacobsen. I think that he's stocked up as of late. Now, against Nebraska, he was only able to play 5 minutes because he gave up so much on the defensive side. But before that, he was playing more minutes than Oscar Cluff out there because off the bench, he was going 9 points, 8 points, really getting those blocks and starting to rebound the ball at a higher level. If Jacobsen can rebound the ball, Big Ten teams need to watch out because that's a 7'4" guy that can be an amazing rim protector, elite rim protector, starting to stretch out the floor, make those threes. And then if he can rebound, man, Daniel Jacobsen is going to be the starting center of the future. I think he's stocking up even with a poor performance against Nebraska. Can't wait to see what he does the rest of this year. That gets us down to the rest of the bench. We got Omer Meyer, who is actually our 7th guy in terms of leading scoring. I'm going to say that he's stocking up a little bit, and that's not because he's been playing exceptionally, but he started out the season really poor, and you could see that the game flow was just a little bit fast for him where he would get caught up in it. I think Omer, although not perfect, he's only averaging 5 points a game right now, but he's been able to slow the game down a little bit as the year has progressed. I think he's gotten more comfortable playing college basketball, and what he was previewed to be was a guy who could really produce, run the offense when Braden Smith was not on the floor. And while I don't think that he's necessarily fit into that role quite yet, I do think that he's definitely making strides into being the guy that he was advertised to be when he committed to West Lafayette. So I'm going to say stock up a little bit for Omer. I'm also going to say stock up for Jack Benner, who has carved out a role for himself as of late. We didn't really expect him to play a whole lot of minutes come Big Ten time, but what he's been able to do is just make it so that he can't be denied. That stretch where he just made shot after shot, I believe it was like 12 makes in a row, and he just continued to carve out that role for himself, averaging 15 minutes a game now. That's what I want to see for Jack Benner. I really do think that he's going to be a future star for this program. If he can find himself a role on a team where we already have so many guys that are going to produce, if he can be just another one off the bench, we're going to be in a good spot. And then the final guy is Sha'Carri Harris, who this is one where I don't really feel one way or the other, like he's stocking up or stocking down. But much like a Meyer, I do think he's gotten a little bit more comfortable in terms of the game flow. Against Maryland, he had 12. Against Nebraska, had 7. And he's much more comfortable letting the game come to him, being physical on the defensive side, and then taking it to the hoop when he needs to. That's not something that we necessarily saw from him to start out the year. It felt like he was really uncomfortable trying to force shots up, trying to fit into a role that wasn't necessarily in. I still don't know about Sha'Carri Harris. It's a very touchy subject because he just started out the year in the exhibitions and the scrimmages so hot, hasn't been that as of late. I'm going to say he's kind of in that mid tier, but I am hanging towards stocking up just a little bit. Like I said, he's mainly in that middle tier, though. That's all our guys. That's the 9 that we're going to go over, the 9-man rotation that Purdue wants to run out. And overall for Purdue, I'm going to say that we're stocking up as of right now. Another big test on Saturday against Iowa. The Nebraska win was a huge step in the right direction, but got to take care of business against Iowa on Saturday. And in this final segment of Locked On Boilermakers, I'm going to give you guys the biggest matchups of Saturday's game and give you my final game prediction, who I've got winning and by how much. That's coming up here next on Locked On Boilermakers. It's time for this week's Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. And for this past week against Nebraska on Tuesday, our Mazda Moving the Game Forward player of the game was Trey Kaufman-Renn, who had 19 rebounds. He really reminded us what it takes to raise the bar. It's his extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and the I never quit. Well, Mazda puts that same passion into every model because highlights make the reel, but what it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Final segment of today's Locked On Boilermakers. And as we end out today's preview episode of Iowa versus Purdue, I want to get into number one, the top 3 matchups that I have for this game. And we'll finish off with me giving my game prediction. The line actually just came out for this game as I'm filming this episode. It's minus 10.5 Purdue, which I saw this after filming the first 2 segments, and I'm kind of surprised by that because I thought the line would be hovering more around the 5.5 range, maybe even a 6.5 line. I didn't see it being a double-digit line, and honestly, I don't think that's fair to Iowa. I think this game will be a little bit closer. Don't want to spoil my prediction. Let's get into the matchups first before we hit on the prediction because I want to keep you guys waiting for that. But the matchups are really fun in this game, and of course, Bennett Stirtz is going to be the number one It starts versus Cox. That is the number one most pivotal matchup in this game is can CJ Cox limit Bennett Stirtz for 40 minutes? Because that's how many minutes he's going to be playing. I don't see Stirtz unless he gets into some type of foul trouble ever really coming off the court in this one. They don't have enough depth to allow that, and they need him too badly. So the key in this one is going to be, can you hold Bennett Stirtz to under 20 points? If CJ can do that, he deserves all the credit in the world, and I do think that Purdue comes out of this game with a victory. 20 is the number in this one for Bennett Stirtz. I don't think he'll get there on Cox, but once again, I don't ever want to doubt what Bennett Stirtz can do because he's proven all year long that he deserves to be a first-team All-Big Ten type of guy, and he will be when that award comes out. But that's the number one biggest matchup, bottom line, for this game against Iowa. The second matchup that I have still includes Bennett Stirtz, but it's going to be Bennett Stirtz on Braden Smith. Stirtz on the defensive side trying to cover Smith. And now, that wasn't always the matchup against Purdue the first time these two teams played, but a good portion of that game, we saw Stirtz picking up Braden Smith. And now, definitely got the double team in there off the ball screens where they wanted to limit Braden Smith's ability to get down low and then pass it off to the inside cutting guy. So that there's a bunch of moving pieces in terms of trying to guard Braden Smith, and everyone throws everybody at Braden Smith. That's kind of been the story of how he's been covered this season. So by no means do I think that Bennett Stirtz will be on him the full portion of this game, but I do think that he will pick him up at certain times, and I think that's going to be a huge matchup. Braden is going to be he's going to be tough for Bennett. I really do think he is going to be a tough matchup for Bennett Stirtz. But this is going to be the Bennett Stirtz game. This is going to be a game where he proves what he is on both sides of the ball, guarding Braden Smith on one and then trying to score over CJ Cox on the other. That's why Bennett Stirtz is really going to make or break what Iowa does in this game. Those are the two biggest matchups in this one. And then the last one is a little bit tricky, but it's going to be Trey Kaufman-Renn and then either against Fulgaris, who, if you remember back to the first time these two teams played, got into a little bit of a scuffle, him and Fulgaris, and then Jakari Harris comes out and gets a technical with the dispute. Fulgaris does come off the bench for Iowa, so he is the first substitution. I don't necessarily know what type of minutes that he'll play in this game. I'm sure that it will just dictate, according to the pace of the game, how much he plays. But Fulgaris, Trey Kaufman-Renn is a matchup I certainly want to look at in this game. But then, of course, starting for Iowa, the guy that's probably going to match up with Trey Kaufman-Renn to start out this game is Cooper Koch. I think that Trey Kaufman-Renn is a really positive matchup against him. If he's able to rebound the ball like we talked about all episode long, like we've talked about all week long, dang near. If Trey Kaufman-Renn is able to rebound the ball, get the ball inside and score, there's no doubt in my mind that Purdue is going to be able to win this game. Now, with that being said, 10.5 points is certainly a big spread. I'm not necessarily comfortable enough to take that on the road if I'm a betting man, which I am, but I'm not willing to take that one. I would be more confident taking Iowa to cover, but I would take Purdue money line, which is hovering right around minus 600. I believe absolutely insane, not the best value there. I still like Purdue in this game. I'm going to give Purdue the win by 7 points. That 6.5 spread, which I would have felt more comfortable with. 7 points in a win for Purdue on the road. I think it'll be right around where these two teams played the first time they faced off in Mackey Arena. I do think it'll be a little bit lower scoring this time. Let's go 71-64 Purdue. I got Purdue winning this one 71-64, winning their fourth straight game and setting up a big time. One of the biggest matchups you'll see all season long next Tuesday on Michigan. But got to get through Iowa first. And it's going to be a fun one on Saturday on Valentine's Day. I hope everyone has a fun Valentine's Day. Stay safe out there and gets a chance to watch this big matchup. It's going to be a fun one, and I appreciate you guys joining me for another episode of Locked On Boilermakers. Thank you for making Locked On Boilermakers your first listen today. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment. I read all of them. Good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. I read them all. I'll try to reply to you guys down below. So thank you for that. And that's all I got for you guys today. So as always, boiler up, hammer down.